Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Michelle Border, and in today's episode, I will discuss personality disorders and other coping mechanisms. Experiencing childhood trauma leaves us with borders in our minds about who we are and can cause us to make choices that ease the pain of trauma, but they can often be unhealthy choices. I will explain several personality disorders and coping mechanisms and explain how they are a result of the trauma. So let's get started breaking our borders together. When experiencing abuse or neglect, children create thoughts about themselves based on the actions or communications of the abuser. These borders in our mind are created based on only the abuser's point of view, which is usually toxic, unsupportive, and typically not true. Abusers often tell the child that they are the problem, the cause of the abuse, or that they are bad. These negative messages are hurtful, and we look for ways to ease that pain. As children, we are not capable of understanding that the abuser is wrong, that they are the one with the problems, and that we are good. Children internalize the ideas given to them by their parents about the kind of person they are. So when negative ideals are given, the child internalizes that, believes it, and accepts it as truth. These ideals are often negative messages that the child internalizes about themselves. Traumatic experiences typically do not leave us with a positive outlook about ourselves. I've mentioned in previous episodes that we humans like to have control in our lives. We want to feel good about ourselves, and we want to feel happy. Abuse, neglect, and negative messages do not provide any of those things. Not having control, positive self-image, or happiness can cause children to subconsciously develop coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are methods created in the mind to manage stress, trauma, and difficult emotions. We seek ways to create our own control over our life, to feel better about ourselves, or to feel happiness. Experiencing childhood trauma can cause a person to have one or multiple personality disorders and various degrees of the traits characterized by that disorder. I personally have borderline, avoidant, and obsessive-compulsive personality disorders. But through my healing journey, I'm learning how to manage these traits. Now, I'm not saying that all children who were abused have a personality disorder, but it is likely they may experience some of the characteristics of a personality disorder because of the abuse. A disorder is a condition that disrupts normal physical or mental functions. Personality disorders are conditions that disrupt social and emotional functions, typically due to creating coping mechanisms for traumatic childhood experiences. These disorders could also be due to a genetic disposition, or a combination of that and the trauma. I will discuss the various types of personality disorders and describe how each one could have been caused by trauma. The first one is paranoid personality disorder, which involves a lack of trust and suspicion of others. A person with this disorder will doubt the loyalty of others and does not trust them emotionally. They may be sensitive to remarks, become angry when they think they are cheated or insulted, and have a habit of holding grudges. These people struggle to trust others because they could not trust the adults who were supposed to take care of them and support them when they were young. They were hurt by these people, so it is fair to think that all people are going to eventually hurt them as well. This is a border built in their minds that everyone will hurt them just like their parents did. The next one is schizoid personality disorder, not to be confused with schizophrenia. This disorder is shown by traits of distance, coldness, and displeasure with the world and those around them. This person does not have social skills and prefers a solitary life. A child who was neglected could develop these types of traits. They were not shown nurturing and emotional support, so they have learned they have to withdraw inside their own environment for protection. And they have the border in their mind that they are not worthy or good at forming relationships, so they feel safer not even attempting that. Antisocial personality disorder is where a person has little regard for how others feel, a disregard for authority and rules, and exhibits irresponsible or reckless behavior. People with this personality disorder often lack empathy and seek only what benefits them in relationships. They may also show aggression or violence. Those with antisocial personality disorder were exposed to childhood trauma and chaotic environments, which have led them to holding anger, and that is expressed through their behaviors. The border in their minds is that I will hurt others and keep them from getting too close so that I don't get hurt by them. Borderline personality disorder is one of the most common ones associated with childhood trauma. The characteristics of this disorder are problems maintaining healthy relationships, problems with self-image, a lack of ability to control and cope with emotions, and possibly impulsivity. Children who experience childhood trauma are given false messages from their abuser. They are told they are bad, problematic, worthless, a burden, and they are not provided with lessons on life and social skills. These events lead to a person feeling inadequate, struggling with life decisions and relationships, and not having coping mechanisms for their emotions. The border created in their mind is that I'm not enough, I'm worthless, and a burden to all. Histrionic personality disorder has qualities of constantly needing admiration, needing attention, and having a lack of empathy for those needs in others. People with this disorder tend to exaggerate relationships to make themselves look loved and admired. During childhood, they were not given the positive attention they needed and did not have their emotional needs met by their parents. This has created a border in their mind that they are not worthy of having those needs met. But because we crave having our needs met, they will do anything to get those needs met in adulthood, even if it means sacrificing the needs of others. Narcissistic personality disorder is also a very common one in those who have experienced childhood trauma. This disorder has characteristics of intense focus on self-needs to the point of manipulating others to get what they want. A lack of empathy causes narcissists to not care about what they do to others in order to get what they need to feel good about themselves. Narcissism is a protective mechanism from the pain experienced during their trauma. The trauma created so many negative self-images for the narcissist that they developed traits to counter those borders. But these traits actually harm the relationships a narcissist tries to develop due to their lack of empathy or care for others' needs. Avoidant personality disorder has traits of feeling inadequate, wanting to isolate away from people and problems, and extreme sensitivity to criticism. Children who experience trauma typically weren't taught social skills, emotional regulation, or relationship skills. A border is created that the person is not good at these things, so they develop fear or uncomfortableness in being social or experiencing new things. They avoid that fear and discomfort by not socializing, not developing relationships, or trying new things. Dependent personality disorder involves a person wanting to be taken care of and clinging to those who support them in unhealthy ways. They fear separation or abandonment. During childhood, people with this disorder were likely not taught how to function on their own, or everything was done for them to the point that they think that is the only way they can function. Overly controlling parents prevent the child from developing skills and confidence, so they build a border in their mind that they need someone else to take care of them. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder is marked by a need for orderliness, perfectionism, and a control over aspects of life. I spoke about this personality disorder in a previous episode when I also spoke about people-pleasing and perfectionism. Childhood trauma causes children to lack a sense of control. OCPD is a coping mechanism that provides some control. The border created in the mind with this personality disorder is that we have to control things in our life to feel good about ourselves. Research on the connection of childhood trauma with personality disorders has shown a strong link between the two. Those who experienced neglect were more likely to show signs of the personality disorders with traits of isolation and withdrawal. Those who experienced physical abuse typically had qualities of impulsivity and lack of empathy. Emotional abuse victims were more likely to have traits of the disorders that showed traits of dependence, lack of emotional regulation, and a positive self-image. The type of abuse experienced caused different types of coping mechanisms to be created. The type of personality disorder created will also determine the type of methods needed for healing to take place. Personality disorders are coping mechanisms to deal with the pain of childhood trauma. These disorders are created from borders placed in our minds that we are not good enough, anger from coping with pain caused by the trauma, or a desire to ignore the pain. Personality disorders can affect relationship development, maintaining healthy relationships, and a positive self-image. The first step to improve negative traits from personality disorders is recognizing that they are causing problems in your life. I will put a journal prompt on my website to help you work through whether you have traits of a personality disorder and how those traits are affecting your life. Not all aspects of personality disorders are negative. People who have narcissistic personality disorder may have high levels of confidence, ambition, and can influence others to achieve positive things. Those with histrionic personality disorder may use their desire to get their needs met by forming relationships at a professional level that provides them with success and confidence. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder leads to traits of high work ethic, attention to details, and organizational skills. The disorders that have traits of anti-socializing can lead to a person with calmness and the ability to calculate risks. The key to know if your personality disorder is in need of healing is to look at how it is affecting you, those around you, and the relationships you're building with them. Are your traits helping you to be productive, happy, and emotionally healthy? Or are they causing you emotional stress and hindering your chance at having healthy relationships with those you care about? Not all people who experience childhood trauma have personality disorders, but almost all victims form some sort of coping mechanism. There are other methods of coping mechanisms caused by trauma that are not personality disorders. I'll explain these now and explain how they are caused by trauma. One coping mechanism is isolation and avoidance. A person withdraws away from others, avoiding their abusers and other people in their lives for fear of being hurt by them as well. Another aspect of this is avoiding the pain from the trauma. They think they can just ignore it, put it away in the back of their mind and not deal with it. The problem with this is that the pain is still there and can actually intensify if not dealt with. Without properly working through the pain, it can continue to cause issues with relationships and can impact emotional and physical health. Codependency and people-pleasing is another coping mechanism. Children who have experienced trauma often feel that they are the cause of the abuse and therefore should be able to figure out how to stop it. The way to stop it is to make the abuser happy. Children will do, say, or act in any way they can think of to make the abuser happy so that the abuse stops. This trait can be carried into adulthood, where the victim enters relationships where they feel they need to make their partner happy all the time. People who have codependent traits want to feel needed, that their worth is dependent on what they do for others, and therefore make the other person's needs their priority. People-pleasing is similar, but it is actually the actions done to make another person happy. This is usually done without regard for one's own needs and in hopes of being liked or accepted by the other person. Hypervigilance is another coping mechanism. I discussed hypervigilance in a previous episode, but it bears repeating when discussing coping mechanisms. Childhood trauma creates chaotic and scary environments. Children in these environments may try to be on the lookout for the abuse, try to prepare for what is about to happen, and possibly prevent the abuse. Hypervigilant is constant alertness and scanning of the environment for danger. Long-term hypervigilance can reprogram the brain during development to accept this alertness as a normal state. This carries into adulthood. The brain constantly being on alert can lead to emotional issues like anxiety and depression, and physical issues like heart rate and blood pressure increases, muscular and joint pain, and stomach problems. Impulsivity is another coping mechanism. As I just mentioned, childhood trauma can affect brain programming during development. The long-term stress, which also causes hypervigilance, can affect the development of certain parts of the brain. When one part of the brain is affected by the long-term stress, another part of the brain does not fully develop. This part of the brain is responsible for decision-making and reasoning. Without this part of the brain being fully active, a person can be more impulsive than others. They will partake in high-risk behaviors, harmful behaviors, and show anger or have violent outbursts. Substance abuse is another problem. I have said many times in my episodes that as humans, we want to feel happy. I believe this is one of the highest priorities of humans, especially those who have felt a lot of pain during childhood. When you have lived with so much pain, you want to find a way to make it stop. However, living in a traumatic environment doesn't provide many opportunities for learning how to experience or create happiness. Many victims of trauma turn to substances to find release from the pain. Alcohol, drugs, nicotine, and food can be sources of finding happiness. The release from these substances is temporary and doesn't truly fix the problem. The pain will return eventually. However, when you don't know how to fix that pain, the substance is what you go to. Control is also another coping mechanism. While I say happiness is one of the highest priorities in humans, control is another one that runs a close second. Having control over our life, our choices, and our decisions provides a sense of certainty and stability. We feel safe when we choose what happens to us. In traumatic environments, we did not have control over our life. We didn't get to choose what happened to us, or get to decide what we would do. This chaotic environment caused us to long for control. In adulthood, trauma survivors may take the need for control to excesses of controlling their own lives or the lives of those closest to them. Deep regiment and scheduling, making all decisions, and requiring that others do what they want are traits of excessive control. Another coping mechanism is aggression. Victims of childhood trauma typically feel anger. Anger at their abuser, at the situation they were put in, and anger about their issues they are trying to cope with after the abuse. Without properly working through this anger, these feelings can build up and be expressed with outbursts, violence, and poor relationships. Being angry is a normal feeling caused by trauma, but has to be dealt with in healthy ways to find happiness and peace within. Distractive behaviors are also a coping mechanism. These are behaviors done to ignore the pain. They can be done in excess to distract from the pain, like television, scrolling on phones, excessive eating, video games, substance use, or sexual activity. It could also be things like cleaning, reading, or shopping. It's really any actions done in excess to numb or ignore the pain of trauma. Sometimes these behaviors can lead to financial issues, hinder healthy relationships, and do not fix the true problems caused by the pain of trauma. Coping mechanisms are typically created unconsciously to deal with the pain of trauma. We don't even realize we are doing them, and it is a natural method of finding a way to be happy in a stressful situation. Coping mechanisms provide short-term happiness, but do not help with working through the pain caused by the trauma. If the pain is not treated, it can intensify and cause lifelong emotional and physical problems, as well as financial, relationship, and situational problems. I will add prompts about coping mechanisms on the Personality Disorders Journal prompt I mentioned above on my website to help you determine if you are using any of these coping mechanisms. In future episodes, I will continue to talk about what has happened to us as we experience childhood trauma and how we can work on a healing journey. Please check out the Breaking Our Borders website for that journal prompt I spoke about. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and continue listening to my podcast on your favorite podcast provider. Thanks for listening.